Okay, this is a good story, and this is a story that has really gotten no press amongst American mainstream outlets. So I actually had to source a lot of this from foreign language reporting. So I did a lot of translating myself here with the help of the Google machine. So Mint Press News tweets out French dock workers refuse to load weapons due for Israel. Dock workers at the port of Marseille Faux are refusing to load a 14-ton shipment of weapons intended for Israel. In a press release, they declared, "We will not participate in the ongoing genocide orchestrated by the Israeli government." According to their statement, the containers have been set aside and the dockers will not go onto the ship bound for Haifa. They further emphasize that the port of Marseille Faux must not be used to supply the Israeli army. So the union put out a press release. This press release was, of course, in French. And so I actually translated this word for word using Google Translate. I did a
You didn't
mitzvah.
use your French to English dictionary.
No, no, I did it all with the Google machine.
That would be a
But
lot more
yes,
impressive, honestly.
yeah, no, no, that was not going to happen at midnight last night when I did this. But I did a mitzvah and I tweeted this out so that everybody on the Twitter machine can read this. So here is the full press release from the Dock Workers Union. French dock workers refuse transport weapons to Israel. Their press release translated to English via Google Translate below. The CGT, General Union of Dock Workers and Port Personnel of the Gulf of Faux, was alerted by several networks that 19 pallets of belts from Eurolink, those are ammo belts for guns, a Marseille company, were to be loaded by container this Thursday afternoon via the port of Marseille, bound for the port of Haifa in Israel. These Eurolink belts are spare parts for machine guns used by the Israeli army to continue the massacre of the Palestinian population. We repeat it again and again. The dockers and port workers of the Gulf of Faux will not participate in the ongoing genocide orchestrated by the Israeli government. We are for peace between peoples. We are opposed to all wars. We deplore all armed conflicts that cause death, misery, and the exodus of populations. After alerting our employers and the relevant authorities, we were able to locate this container filled with Eurolink belts. This container has been set aside, and the dockers will not load it onto the ship bound for Haifa. The port of Marseille Faux must not be used to supply the Israeli army. For peace, for an end to wars in the world, for a society free from capitalist exploitation, signed the Union. Based
Anti-Semites.
yeah, indeed. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So following suit, you have Jonathan Shafi tweets out Italian dock workers have followed the French example in refusing to ship arms to the genocide. So apparently, this same vessel is also going to port in Italy en route to Israel. And so the Italian Dock Workers Union also issued a statement that they will participate in this protest action, essentially saying if the French are strong armed into loading those parts, we will not transport the ship either. Dock workers in France refused to load cargo of weapons for Israel, ready for picket in Genoa, too. So they joined the action. So, what you have here is an example of people at their place of work doing what they can as workers to disrupt these genocidal campaigns. So, this is an example of nonviolent direct action that is totally legal. I mean, they might get fired, they might get in trouble from their boss if they don't do it, but there's nothing illegal about saying, hey, look, we are not loading this piece of cargo. Fire us. Fine, whatever. If the French government wants to send these weapons, all of those members of parliament can come down here and load them on themselves. We're not doing it. And if enough people take actions like this, you can shut the system down. And I think a huge reason why this story got no coverage in the American mainstream press is because it is always the case, much less this specific circumstance where you're talking about a genocide being committed by our quote unquote key ally. But it's always the case that they don't want workers to know what power they have. They don't want
Exactly.
workers reading about instances where workers at their workplace exercise political power. But you do have political power as workers if you band together in solidarity and use it. So Mondo Weiss puts out an injury to Palestine is an injury to all. Join the Palestinian workers' May Day call to act now against Israeli genocide. So this was obviously put out in the end of April in the run up to the May 1st May Day holiday. But they do make some points about why Palestine is a labor issue. An injury to one is an injury to all. The Israeli settler colonial regime is part of the same U.S.-backed system of racist state violence that brutalizes Black, Indigenous, African, Arab, Middle Eastern, Muslim, Asian, and working-class people in the global South and around the world. With Israel's knee on their neck, Palestinians can't breathe, and we unconditionally stand with them, just as they have stood with our struggles for Black and brown lives, Standing Rock, migrant rights, and beyond. Our tax dollars fund Israel. Israel's crimes are committed with tens of billions in bipartisan U.S. weaponry, tax dollars that should be spent instead to reverse Israeli destruction in Palestine and on badly needed jobs, food, housing, healthcare, education, and transportation for poor and working people at home. Our workplaces arm Israel. Many of our unionized factories, logistics, academia, tech, and other workplaces, without our consent, produce weapons, transportation, research technology, and other materials for the genocidal Israeli regime. Our unions fund Israel. Our unions are already involved on the wrong side. In the 1920s to 30s, top labor officials donated millions to the Histadrut, the Zionist labor federation that spearheaded anti-Palestinian dispossession, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing, including the Nakba that established the Israeli state in 1948. For more than 70 years, they have used our union dues and pension funds to buy billions of dollars worth of Israeli bonds. Today, despite horrendous Palestinian casualties, most labor officials remain silent or worse. Global working class solidarity is the only way to win. More than ever in this era of globalization, workers and oppressed people everywhere are up a common enemy. We can't win. What's that?
I mean, it's not your fault. It's an error there.
Yeah.
Are up against a common
enemy. Up against the common enemy, yeah, as a typo or omission. We can't win if we are atomized by union or even country. We need international class-wide unity. That means every worker must take on the task of building solidarity with Palestine, today an epicenter of class struggle. Workers can stop Israeli genocide. More than 50 years ago, Arab and Black auto workers led a wildcat strike and other actions to protest UAW complicity with Israel. Today, we can follow their example in respecting the BDS picket line by protesting, bringing union resolutions, and above all, by mobilizing our collective power at the workplace. Yes, as shown by Dockers in South Africa, India, Sweden, Norway, Turkey, Italy, Belgium, and the ILWU on the west coast of the United States, which has respected the Block the Boats community labor picket line by refusing to handle Israeli cargo. In Italy, they did a protest action in May of 2021, which was the latest flare-up of violence in that region prior, of course, to October 7th, 2023. And so labor actions to disrupt Israel's genocidal campaigns, whether it's this most recent one or ones past, have succeeded in slowing the transfer of weapons. And they will succeed 2, 3, 4, and 5-fold, depending on how many workers get involved. And like I said, the reason why I had to do a lot of searching and translating of foreign language sources for this segment, even though it's not a particularly long segment, that's the long and the short of it right there, is because American media does not want workers to feel empowered. They don't want them to feel like they can use their power as workers to affect change. Work and politics are separate. You go to work, you come home. If you have an hour to watch the news and get politically informed, great. If not, even better. They don't want you thinking, hey, what if those 8 hours we spend at work every single day, what if we can use those hours and use that time to organize our workers and actually affect change that way? They do not want you thinking about that. They want you to think of that as an impossibility, no matter the context. Obviously, these circumstances are especially severe given what's happening, but that is their attitude towards workers and the workplace as a forum for political organization in general. And that's why I think it is important to highlight instances like this where workers have success in taking peaceful and, in this case, fully legal direct action to disrupt the Israeli genocide.
Yes. Well, this is really where you can see how much the media is controlled by their largely corporate owners at this point. Go look at news from the 70s. When I was a little kid, when you would watch the news, it would be boring to me because I was a little kid. Be all kinds of labor reporting. It would
Right.
be this union is on strike, boring stuff. I've mentioned this before, man. There was a TV show about a union steelworker with Carl Malden. Can you imagine them producing a show? It was called Skag. Can you
Right.
imagine them producing a show like that today?
Yeah, no, of
Norma
course not.
Ray. Do you see movies like that anymore? Really idealizing unions and the people who make them up. They don't do that, and that's quite intentional. That is why they needed identity politics. They had to put something in that void. They
Right.
had they had to take away the real democratic debate about the conditions of our society, about the economic welfare of the people. They had to put something in there. They can't just report cats stuck in trees every day,
Right.
right? Everything's great. Oh, it's another beauty. They can't just do that. So they had to create something that people could fixate on to create an illusion of having a meaningful debate about the progress of society. They stuck identity politics into that space. And this is why you are much more likely to see a headline in all of these media outlets about some racial transgression in some town that you're supposed to get absolutely obsessed with. I'm not saying things like that are not important, but there is a reason that they fixate on that to the exclusion of all other things, to the exclusion of all other things. And you can see that play out in people who think of themselves as left. They almost never have anything to say about economics and class. That is the end result of a decades long effort to create a left that would be divisive and that would be off putting to most of the laboring class with their absolute fixation on things that, for the most part, those people don't care about. They care about wages, they care about health care. They have distracted society with these issues that, Keaton always said this, I'll cover culture because I feel like you have to. That's what makes it a perfect trap, because you kind of can't ignore it because they're putting it there. You kind of have to say something about it. But you're right in that, the whole purpose of it is really to distract. So you're put, as a commentator, you're put in a very difficult position. Do you ignore this shiny object that they're trying to get everyone to pay attention to effectively, or do you take it on and risk reinforcing that whole that whole technique? But yeah, man, you can have massive labor strikes with no headlines about it,
Oh,
no
yeah.
reporting about it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And you can see how intentional it is. You can find these all over YouTube. Go look up any like newscast from 1972.
Right.
You're
Of course.
almost definitely going to have reporting about labor.
Oh, and when they do cover a labor strike, it's always from the perspective of, hey, so when are you guys going to fold this up so you can get back to work? Because this is costing ordinary
Right.
people money. The shelves are
Right.
empty. The prices
Yeah.
are going up.
Yeah.
You guys can't be doing this.
They're
So
the
when are you going to
villains.
knock
Yeah.
it off? Yeah, right. They're the villains. Exactly.
Please clap.